Back when I didn't have two coins to rub together, I signed my wife's family's prenuptial agreement without hesitation. Fast forward several years, I'd built real wealth, and that's when she betrayed me. Out of nowhere, her parents came demanding I invalidate the prenup so she could walk away with half of everything I'd earned. What they didn't realize was that the man they once saw as broke now held all the leverage. Hey Reddit, I'm Daniel Mercer. I never thought I'd be airing this out in a public forum, but here we are. I'm not looking for sympathy or advice. I just need to release this weight I've carried. I was 27 when I met Claire Whitmore. At the time, I was a systems analyst at a modest tech firm in Dallas. I had just finished grad school, buried in student loans, and was sharing a cramped one-bedroom apartment with two roommates. Claire's life couldn't have been more different. She came from serious money. Her parents owned a successful chain of upscale grocery stores across the region. They lived in a gated community and hosted fundraisers attended by politicians and city elites. Claire was magnetic, beautiful, confident, and, to my surprise, interested in me. For a while, it felt like something out of a dream. We dated for a year, and life felt perfect. But when we started talking about marriage, the illusion started to crack. That's when her parents, Richard and Elaine Whitmore, stepped in with a standard family procedure, a prenuptial agreement. They sat me down like it was a business pitch and introduced this document as a safeguard for their family's wealth. Richard wasn't rude, but he wasn't warm either. He was clinical, composed, and entirely transparent about their intentions. He said I was a respectable young man, but ultimately unproven. Translation: they didn't believe I brought anything of real value to their daughter's future. To keep things easy, they even offered legal representation, through one of their family's preferred law firms. The attorney was polite and polished, but made no effort whatsoever to advocate for me. I couldn't afford to hire my own legal counsel, not with wedding expenses piling up and pressure from every direction. The prenup was ruthless. I would have no claim to Claire's inheritance, nothing from their businesses, and no right to any marital assets earned through my own work or investments. Alimony was off the table completely. Whatever I earned would remain mine, and everything she had, or ever would have, stayed entirely hers. And still, I signed. I was in love. And completely broke. The early years of marriage were exactly what I'd expected, tough. I kept working my day job while pouring every spare minute into building an analytics software startup. Claire supported me, at least verbally. She worked part-time for a while, but eventually quit altogether to run the household. As the business started to gain traction, I funneled everything I had into it, every dollar, every sleepless night. It wasn't an overnight success, but it was steady growth. After 5 relentless years, we landed contracts with major national brands, and investors began circling. I finally left my day job and went all in. By our 10th anniversary, I was worth over $12 million. I bought us a 5-bedroom home in Plano. Claire transitioned from outlet sales to designer boutiques overnight. Her once condescending parents suddenly treated me like a peer. They began inviting me into business discussions, asking for my input on investments, never once mentioning the prenup again. We had money, stability, social clout. But we didn't have love. Claire and I barely interacted outside of practical matters. She was far more invested in bottomless mimosas and charity luncheons than the excitement of late-night brainstorming or launching new products. Though we shared a home, we were living entirely separate lives. Then the warning signs began. Hidden text threads. Whispered phone calls. Sudden involvement in charitable events she'd never shown interest in before. I sensed something wasn't right. The truth came out thanks to a mutual friend. Claire was having an affair with a man named Graham Heller, a spoiled heir whose family owned vineyards out in California. The kicker? He was married too. Her plan was simple: leave me, claim half my fortune, and ride into the sunset with Graham once he figured out his own messy situation. Before I even filed for divorce, her parents summoned me for a meeting. It was surreal, like being ambushed at a brunch buffet. Richard acknowledged Claire's affair almost casually, then swiftly redirected the conversation to the prenup. "It's outdated," he said, pacing their luxurious living room with its gleaming mahogany floors. "You're not the same man you were when we met. You've built a legacy. Claire has stood by you all this time. It's only right she receives her share." Claire said nothing. Just sat there, staring blankly. Then came their request, more of a demand, really. They wanted me to scrap the prenup. Richard suggested we either void it or replace it with a modern and fair agreement, one that entitled Claire to half of everything I now owned. He argued it was her due for the sacrifices she'd made. Sacrifices? She hadn't contributed a thing to the business. Our household was run by a maid, a personal chef, and a yoga instructor, all on my dime. Claire had never even acknowledged the affair, let alone apologized for it. "It doesn't reflect our life anymore," she finally said, barely audible. "Things have changed." I stood up slowly from their Italian leather chair and locked eyes with Richard. "You're right," I told him. "Things have changed. But let's be clear, I didn't write that prenup. You did. You handed it to me when I had nothing. You made damn sure your daughter was protected from me. And now, because I've exceeded your expectations, you want a do-over?" Claire spoke again, this time more softly. "Daniel, it's just paper. It doesn't reflect what we've built together." I laughed. Bitterly. "No, Claire. That prenup reflects exactly what we built. You made sure I couldn't touch your family's money. I honored that. And now, you're not touching mine." Richard's face went red. He started warning me about lengthy public court battles, claimed their legal team would challenge the prenup and its enforceability. I stared him down and said one word, try. 2 days later, I filed for divorce. My attorney submitted the prenuptial agreement, along with hard evidence of Claire's affair, texts, voicemails, witness statements. Richard and Elaine tried to argue that the prenup was now unfair and out of date due to changed circumstances. The judge didn't buy it for a second. They had created the document, provided the lawyer, and pushed it on me when I had no bargaining power. I had signed it voluntarily. It was notarized, ironclad, and Claire had committed adultery. Everything I built came after our marriage, without a single dollar or ounce of effort from Claire or her family. Not once did they lift a finger or offer help. After 6 grueling months of legal back and forth, the divorce was finalized. Claire walked away with only her clothes, some personal items, and the car I'd bought her years prior. No spousal support. No share in my company. Not even a fraction of the success she once tried to claim. That was a year ago. Since then, I've continued growing my business, only now, with better balance. I bought a peaceful lake house and spend most weekends fishing, reading, and enjoying a life that moves slower than the chaos I came from. People always say revenge tastes best when served cold, but I didn't need revenge. All I needed was the same document they once shoved in my face to protect themselves. Ironically, it's the one thing that ended up shielding me from them. Claire, now. She's back living under her parents' roof, still holding out hope that Graham will leave his wife. Life has a cruel sense of humor sometimes. If there's a lesson here, it's this: be careful what you demand from someone when they're down, because they might rise higher than you ever dreamed, and leave you behind. I thought the worst was over. The divorce papers were still fresh when Claire returned, but this time swinging with a new weapon, a civil lawsuit. She claimed I had coerced her into signing the prenup by using emotional manipulation. According to her attorney, I'd taken advantage of her trust during a vulnerable time, tricking her into agreeing to a lopsided marriage contract. The same contract her own parents designed. The same legal agreement their chosen attorney had walked me through. At first, I laughed it off, it seemed so absurd. But then a court summons landed on my desk. And then came the smear campaign. Claire's cousin, who worked in local media, somehow caught wind of the lawsuit. In no time, blogs and tabloids were publishing sensational headlines like, "Cold-blooded tech tycoon dupes devoted wife with ruthless prenup," and "Stay-at-home spouse battles heartless CEO for her fair share." They painted Claire as a selfless woman who had given up everything, her dreams, her youth, even her body, for a man who tossed her aside the moment he got rich. It was complete fiction, but the story stuck. Public sympathy flooded her way. Suddenly, investors began second-guessing our deals. Employees whispered. Potential partnerships were postponed or withdrawn. I wasn't just being sued, I was being tried in the court of public opinion. That wasn't going to fly. I brought in a new legal team. The best money could buy. We weren't just going to defend the prenup, we were going to obliterate her case. What we uncovered was damning. Bank statements revealed unauthorized transfers from our shared accounts, money used to shower her affair partner with extravagant gifts. We obtained surveillance footage from luxury clubs and high-end hotels where she had rendezvoused with Graham. A private investigator compiled a full report, more than a dozen confirmed meetups over 9 months, including a romantic getaway she claimed was a mental health retreat. But the smoking gun? A recording from 6 months before her affair even surfaced. During a wild girls' night out, Claire had gotten drunk while on a call with an old college friend, who, coincidentally, was dating my head of HR. The friend had her on speakerphone, and someone recorded the whole conversation. Claire laughed as she bragged, "Of course I married him with a prenup. Daddy made sure of it. But now he's rich, and I'm gonna get my damn cut. Don't worry, I'll find a way to tear it up when the time's right." She boasted about keeping the affair hidden, joked about squirreling away money through dummy corporations, and laughed that idiots like Daniel don't think wives understand shell companies. That recording torpedoed her case. Once we submitted the audio and the supporting documentation to the court, Claire's lawsuit collapsed almost overnight. But the real blow came when the media narrative flipped. New headlines exploded across social media and news outlets. Scheming wife tried to dupe CEO with false abuse claims, gold digger exposed in shocking secret recording, scorned spouse plotted to steal millions from tech entrepreneur. Claire's social standing evaporated. Friends unfollowed her. Her wine nights, charity events, and club invites vanished. Even her own circle ghosted her. And Graham? He dumped her less than a week after the news broke. Apparently, he didn't want the scandal either. His wife filed for divorce and cleaned him out in the process. It was poetic. I filed a defamation countersuit, citing the reputational and financial damage her lies had inflicted on my company. We eventually reached a settlement, but not before I made one specific demand: she would publicly retract all claims and publish a formal apology. It had to run in Forbes Local and the Dallas Business Review. Cold? Maybe. But after what she'd tried to do, it felt like justice. 3 months later, she asked to meet one last time. She looked nothing like the woman I'd once known, tired, thinner, like a ghost wearing designer clothes. No makeup or polished confidence could hide the guilt etched into her face. "I never thought it would end like this," she whispered, staring into a cup of coffee she didn't touch. I was scared. My whole life I was told to marry rich, secure the future, but you changed. You became something I couldn't control. For the first time in a long while, I spoke from the gut. "No, Claire. I became something you never believed I could be." She asked if, someday, we could talk again, maybe even be friends. I stood up, dropped a 20 on the table, and replied. "Tell your parents their plan worked flawlessly. They protected you from my poverty, and they protected me from your greed. Then I walked away. So here's my final message for anyone reading this. Be wary of those who only see your worth once it turns profitable. And if someone tries to control your future from the start, they were never planning to build it with you, they were waiting to benefit from you. And when that plan fails, they'll resent you for rising higher than they ever imagined.